Awesome. Welcome to another episode of the Event Promoter Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about spaces, specifically third spaces, like how that is an important thing for communities to have and why that work of holding space is important. And then also a little bit on how a space affects an event and how an event affects a space. And with that, I'll invite Emily here to introduce yourself and give a little bit about your business too.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Autenrieth, and I am the founder of A Seat at the Table Books. We are a bookstore, cafe, and third space just south of Sacramento in Elk Grove. And we are very proudly holding space for everyone in our community who needs a seat at the table and needs somewhere safe to be themselves.
I really love the name of that business. It's really representative of what you stand for, and you just like kind of get it when you hear it. You're like, oh yeah, I know what this is.
Thank you.
So let's just talk about I want to hear your definition of what that third space is, because you mentioned that in your description of your business, and I think that we kind of can take that for granted sometimes if it's a term that's really obvious to us. But can you give me in your words what that means?
Yes, I love the term third space because it represents what that space is meant to offer us in our lives. We have our home and we have our work as our two primary spaces where we exist in this world as adults. And the third space concept is that additional place you belong where you are not responsible for your home and you are not responsible for work. You get to be yourself and build community in a very different way that is really crucial to our well-being.
Yeah, I love that definition. And, I think that's something that people listening to this podcast, you're either, an event organizer, probably where you're booking spaces like yours to put on events, or you have your own space, and just the value of holding that space for whatever your community is shouldn't go unsaid and unnoticed.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the way that your space, it's part bookstore, part coffee shop a little bit, and part event space. So like, how does your space use events to kind of activate that third space? And what kind of events are generally being put on there?
I find that books and coffee and community space really complement each other very well because each of them meets a need for us and overlays on each other really effectively. So books are the reason that I believe everyone deserves a seat at the table. I did not grow up in an environment that fostered that belief system, but by reading the stories of other people's experiences, whether fictionalized or nonfiction, I really learned what a big world it is out there and how valid every different path through this world is. And coffee is really symbolic of the kinds of connections we can make with each other over something small, like an espresso or an Italian soda or a locally baked pastry. But these are excuses for us to get together in a world where we are often siloed and alone. And then we have the community events, which our space offers for all ages. We have story times on Saturdays. We have open mics 2 Fridays a month. We have a vinyl and vino night where you can bring your records, sip some wine, and just be in community. And a lot of other opportunities as well to either connect with other attendees or learn from authors who are coming to share their work. And in each of these areas, we are being nourished, metaphorically or literally or both. And I think that space to just be yourself, to get on the Wi-Fi and get your work done, or to go in our quiet room if you need a sensory break, or to let your kids be in that play area where they can be the kids that they are and you can relax. All of that is super important to maintaining our well-being in a really challenging world.
Yeah. I love the variety of those types of events. Are those all hosted by you, or do people also sometimes book your space to put on events?
We do it lots of different ways. We host our open mic and our vinyl and vino and our story times with our support from our nonprofit arm, A Seat at the Table Community Initiative. We also do a lot of partnered events. I'm hosting a panel on perimenopause in January, and that is partnered with a nurse practitioner who focuses on the experience of perimenopause and menopause. And that's something that we could not do on our own. And that is really an important opportunity for our community to hear from someone who's trying to get the word out about what the actual medical needs and their interventions are for people experiencing perimenopause. So there's lots of different opportunities to partner with us. We've worked with the Sacramento LGBT Center on social justice poetry slams. And the more that we partner, the more we're serving our community together and pulling together in the same direction. I think the more effectively we can be that third space and meet community needs. In addition, we've had people rent the space for healing circles, for birthday parties, for mixers, for workshops. And that's another way we can serve the community, by providing that space, making it available, having a non-conventional place to meet up and be surrounded by books, be in the coffee shop kind of energy that we offer. And it's very different from being in a corporate meeting room or having those partitions in the middle of a conference center. Just having that intimate space where you feel more like you're a regular person joining in on this experience that the host is offering, I think is super valuable.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's a cool variety too. Something you touched on there is like the difference of versus like a meeting space. But what do you think is just kind of the impact that space, like the setting, has on events in general, beyond just meetings, but like, music, or like an open mic in your space versus like a crowded bar or something? Both are totally valid, but I'm just interested in your thoughts on how the space affects the event.
The space sets the tone. I don't think you can do a lot to mitigate or improve that. The space is the defining experience. When someone first walks in, they've never been to this event before, they've never met some of these people before, the space starts that experience for them. So we have people who come to our drag shows who would never go to a drag show at a bar because they just feel out of place there for whatever reason, but they feel very much like they belong in the bookstore. And that kind of thing, I don't think you can really replicate without having the right space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I resonate with that really deeply as a recovering alcoholic. I actually do go to bars and go see music, but I would much prefer not to. Just the energy of it is just different. And when I was 22, that's exactly what I wanted, was that kind of high chaotic energy of a bar, where like now I'm like, let's go to a lounge. Let's go to, we should have more bookstores in Omaha that do events, but
yeah, and it really takes all kinds. Like you're saying, there are different needs that spaces can meet. I also find with our open mics, we have a really high number of first-time performers because they feel like going to an open mic at a really crowded place and a place that's a little more rowdy would make it much harder for them to share vulnerable work for the first time. And we get a lot of really beautiful performances, poetry, music, all kinds of things from people that are finding the courage to do it because they're in the bookstore cafe.
Yeah, the first place I ever performed was at a coffee shop instead of a bar or something. I did poetry and then eventually music. And I have some friends that I book for music shows, and one friend specifically asks if we can book in sober spaces every time he comes to Omaha, because he really doesn't like the experience. He's a songwriter, has a lot of really thoughtful lyrics, and is quite the performer, but like does not love the get kind of heckled at by the person at the bar who doesn't agree with the politics of whatever the performance is that he is kind of talking about. And which we booked a show like that actually happened, and it was like, oh, that's awkward and not really the vibe we're trying to cultivate here. And then there's other bands that do really well in that space where it's like they're a rock band, and just that energy of a bar is just like what you need, where they might play a stripped back acoustic set at a bookstore or a dry bar or something. Totally. And I think you mentioned something there and about when you walk in, it's like the venue is like the first thing that you experience. It's like quite literally the baseline of the experience and the first relationship that you're making there at the event. And if it makes you feel comfortable, you're much more likely to make relationships with other people. And if it makes you not feel comfortable, then you're probably going to have a hard time connecting with people at an event.
Absolutely. And the other component there is that, as you're saying, you had a friend get heckled for political views. A seat at the table stands very firmly with the safety of every marginalized group in our community. So, coming into an open mic or any other event, you're not going to encounter any of that. You're not going to be challenged for your pronouns or your identity or the cultural pride item that you're wearing. You're going to be safe and welcome no matter what. And I think that really changes things as well. When you can feel that in a space, it changes how people share. And that has a real snowball effect in a good way of fostering that community building that cannot happen where those variables are not established.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on that topic? The interplay of events and spaces and how they affect each other?
I would just say it's great to keep in mind that impact of the venue on the experience and be open to alternative venues. A lot of smaller businesses like mine don't know how to position themselves in the events and reservations market, but that doesn't mean they're not open to working with you. So finding that small community bookstore or cafe in your community and reaching out to them could lead to some really amazing things.
Yeah, I love that. So on that note, I know that you're currently open to reservations and bookings in your area. Can you talk a little bit about that, like what that looks like for people that are in the Sacramento Elk Grove area? And then also maybe if someone is interested in supporting your business that isn't local, how they could do that.
We are open 9 to 7 daily. So you can always come just check us out, kind of get a feel for the space before you reach out for a reservation and try our very good eco-roasted coffee. But once you're ready to take a look on our website, there's the cafe and community space menu that has reservation information. And you'll find there that we can reserve our live edge table for you, which is a large table that looks like it's cut from the center of a tree, because it is. And it can seat about 12 people. And then that's available for a low minimum purchase anytime that we're open. We also have after hours reservations where you can use our whole space. The space is 3,000 square feet, about 1,500 feet of usable space with a projector, microphone, sound system, everything that you need to get set up for the workshop, mixer, or birthday party that you're trying to reserve with us. And we can also discuss rates for early closure for the store as well. And then we'd also just love to see you. Come check out our curated book selection and get talking with us, and we'll help you feel connected within your community. As far as online support, we do sell online at aseatathetablebooks.org. It's a lot of A's and T's. So you can always just Google Elk Grove Bookstore because we're the only one and you'll find us. And we do have a bookshop listing if you're familiar with Bookshop and prefer that. The other option is that we have launched sponsorships where you can actually help us expand our store inventory by sponsoring a section that you're passionate about. We'll put your book recommendations on the shelf and we'll shout you out on social media. So if that's your business, that's a great way to get some exposure to people that really care about equity and inclusion and safety for everyone and care about literacy. We also have monthly sponsorships where you can get a free paperback sent to you every month. So a lot of different options that you can kind of tailor to how you'd like to support. But I really value every single order that we get, every single sponsor we have, because we're trying to do something very essential for a community that needs this third space. And when you support us, you are supporting the entire community.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all that. And thank you for holding that space. And I know that's not always easy, but I do think it's interesting, the different kind of monetization strategies you figured out there. And I think there's a lot of venues that are, always kind of struggling to maintain revenue and figure out different ways to monetize. And so I think that's kind of even if someone's not in a position to support you in that way, like still an interesting takeaway of just how you're able to figure those things out. And I'm sure you're always experimenting with new things. And how long have you been doing the sponsorship part? Just curious.
The sponsorship has been going for just over a year. And you're right, we are just innovating constantly and trying new things, which means if people who are listening to this have new ideas for partnership, I'm open. Our email address is on the website. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're one of those businesses that hasn't yet started monetizing your space the way we are, I'm also happy to chat with you if you want to email me.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks so much. These always fly by. I think that we got some interesting stuff there. And thank you to you and everyone else who's out there holding spaces for our connections, which is really what's important.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been great.